this isn't finished. Hi, I'm Lisa, the artist behind Lachri Fine Art. Today is part one of my two-part sea turtle demonstration. For this video, I am going to be walking you through how I created the water with the rays of light, the fish in the background, Dory, and the coral above the turtle. Next week, I will be showing you how I drew the turtle and everything else. The supplies that I used on this piece are listed below in the video description. I did not list all of the colors that I used because I pretty much used all of them. If you're supporters over on Patreon, the 2-hour version of this tutorial is available for you guys now, so make sure to head over and check that out. Now, onto this tutorial. I'm starting off with light blue. I'm covering all of the paper with this. I'm working in small circles and back and forth, both vertical and horizontal, to make sure that I've got good coverage of that pencil. I'm not pushing very hard. I'm doing everything in a lot of light layers so that I don't damage the tooth of the paper, which later on means I can add even more layers. Now notice the white gaps that I've left on the paper there. That is where the rays of light or the water surface is coming from. Notice that I take this pencil and I outline everything before I fill it in. This helps me keep my edges very, very clean. Once I get that all lined in, I'm coming on with my second shade of blue. This is a much darker blue. You can see I'm starting to build up more of those horizontal lines for the water surface. I'm being very sketchy. Most of these lines are long horizontal lines and short vertical. Then long horizontal, short vertical. That keeps the movement of the water. I'm going to blend that out with the Mona Lisa odorless paint thinner. Any odorless mineral spirit will work for you, like Gamsol. That works just the same. I'm using a scrubber brush instead of the Taklon brushes you guys have seen me use before. These scrubber brushes work so good for getting your first layers blended really smoothly, very quickly. I'm taking another darker pencil once that layer dried and darkening up more of the blue. I used about 5 different shades of blue and white to get this look. Now I want to make sure it's lighter towards the top and it gets darker as I fade towards the bottom. Blending that again with the paint thinner. I'm coming back on top with my Derwent Drawing Chinese White and really pulling some of those whites out. I'm now going to start working on these fish in the background. Now these fish are going to look pretty terrible right now. That's okay. They are just supposed to be blurring kind of in the distance. They won't look right until everything else in the piece gets drawn in. I'm using oranges and magentas for the most part for these guys. I will come back through with a bit of blue and purple for some of the shading because I do want them to look like they're in the distance. So I've got to pull some of the blue from the background over them. You can see where I've done there. I don't want a ton of detail in these guys. I'm using the side of the pencil to pull out my rays of light, and I've used the Derwent Drawing Chinese White for that. I just pulled them down to where I wanted the rays of light. It really is that simple. Now for this hippo tang, I've outlined my black areas first and the yellow areas. Then I came on top with various shades of blue and purple. I don't want this to all be the same shade of blue or he won't look right. He needs lots of different colors in there. I'm using white to pull out highlights. If he comes out one solid color, he's just going to look very flat. Now onto the coral. I'm going to block in a base layer here. Now I've outlined where my lines are going to go, but I ended up blending over all of that and coming back later on. This was actually kind of a wasted step, me outlining it, because I finally was like, forget it. I'm just going to shade over all of this dark and then use my lighter pencils to lighten it up as needed later. Now I've built several layers here. I've used some black, but mostly for the darkest areas, I used magentas and blues to get that really dark. Blended that out with the paint thinner. Now you can see the areas that stayed really white. Those stayed white because I put white down first and it kind of protects the paper from getting too dark. Now I'm darkening it up again. Now I tried to use the Scotch Magic tape to pull out my highlights and I really wasn't getting as light as I would get with the white, so I stopped that. If you've never seen how I've used the Scotch Magic tape, I will have a link pop up or a card pop up here. You can check that out. But for this one, I decided it wasn't getting the effect that I wanted, so I just used my Derwent Drawing Chinese White to pull out the highlights. That gave me more of what I was looking for this piece. You can see I'm doing a lot of little dots here. I want to create the texture of the coral, which is very, very rough. Building up more of my shadows. And this is just a layering process. Your first few layers are going to look terrible. Mine absolutely did. And you may feel like you messed it up. You should just start over. Don't. Keep layering with colored pencil because it is such a slow medium to work in. It's easy to think that stuff is just not going well. Just keep layering. As long as your drawing is right and you didn't burnish too early on, damaging your paper, you can just keep layering until it looks how you want it to. I want to keep hyping up my contrast here, layering more of the purples and magentas and blues to get the darks really dark. On to the next coral, or the next section of coral. This is done the same way, only I've got some different colors in there. I've used yellow, orange, and I'm doing my shadows with purple and brown. I don't want to use black up against the yellow for the shadows. That won't look, it doesn't look good. If you're using yellow, avoid black. So for this coral, this one is the same color as the other one, but it's very different in shape. And you'll notice that I've left it very outlined in white. I want to make sure that it looks like it's obviously a different coral from the other one, even though they're the same colors. Hyping up my shadows and contrast there, even doing a little touch up on the fish next to it. You can see that those orange fish look much better now that the coral is starting to get into place. Now, I'm going to leave that alone. That coral's not completely finished. I will come back to that after I'm finished with the turtle. But for now, I'm going to block in my next section of coral. Getting in the darks, blended that out, let it dry, and now I'm more defining my shapes here. Blended that again. While that dries, I drew out the rest of the details on the turtle's fin. Don't get too excited. I'm not going too far on this turtle, just getting that back fin in today. I've got to use a really sharp pencil to make sure all these details are very, very clean, very sharp. Now I'm going to leave that alone, come down to these bottom two fish. For this hippo tang, you can see I started with the black, then filled in the yellow for the fins, and now I'm working on the blue. And again, it's not just one color of blue. I've got about, I'd say 3 or 4 different shades of blue, white, and purple that I'm using on him. Make sure that I fade from areas so he's not just one flat color. I need lights and darks in there. Very, very important. Now I'm going to block in the coral above him. I've started with this cream color and I'm using very sketchy lines with my next pencil to create all of the texture in this coral. This is going to take many, many layers to get the depth that I want so that it looks three-dimensional. Got a little bit of orange in there. I'm blending that with a paint thinner. You can see that smudges all my details together. I also drew in an extra fish while I was waiting for that to dry because I decided that corner was missing something. So I've got brown now for my details, and then I'm going to come on top of that with the magenta, or purple in this case. Actually, I already did the magenta, now it's purple. On top of that purple, I'll use a brick red color to make it much, much darker. I'm also now switching over to my Derwent Drawing Chinese White to pull out my highlights. Now I have you guys ask all the time, you want to see me actually drawing. When I draw, if I'm freehanding stuff like on this fish, I draw on my lap and that is just awkward and I'm not recording that. So I apologize, but I just don't record myself drawing. It's just weird. So this fish is the same way, where I've got to pay attention to where my lights and darks go, and he's not finished, neither is the coral above them. That won't be finished until I block in the turtle so I can adjust where my contrast needs help. So next week I will show you how I shaded in the turtle and all of the coral and fish and everything that doesn't currently show on this piece. I'm also working on an adult coloring page that is really detailed to go with this that will be available next week as well. Thanks for watching. Again, if you are supporters over on Patreon, the 2-hour version of this tutorial is available for you now, complete with voiceover. If you are new to my channel, I have new video critiques every Tuesday where I'm critiquing your original paintings or drawings, my own speed paintings, drawings, and tutorials every Wednesday, our Q&A videos every Thursday, and artist vlogs every Saturday. So if you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe so you don't miss out on anything. And you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google+. All of those social media sites are linked below in the video description where you can keep up with news, my newest work, and see real-time clips of whatever it is I'm currently working on. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I had actually planned on this video being the whole piece all for today. I even started a week early on this piece. Normally it takes me about a week to get something this size done in colored pencil. There's just too much detail, and so I had to realize there was no way I was going to get this done without rushing, which I was not willing to do. So now it's going to be a two-part video, which works out good because it's so long. That means I would have had to have sped it up so fast to keep within my normal time frame, and you guys would have complained. I'm also working on a really detailed adult coloring page for this, and I haven't finished that yet either, so that will also be next week.